Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan here on Inside the Birds. We've got a lot to cover. We are now about 2 weeks through camp, maybe a little longer as far as days, but we're about halfway through training camp. Eagles are gearing up for their second of 3 preseason games. They're going to play tonight against the New England Patriots. So, Adam, we've got news on transactions. We've got news on just developments throughout the joint practices. And, of course, we'll get into what's expected in the game against the Patriots, the second preseason game and the final home preseason game. They came and they went, but we obviously have a lot to go there. I want to direct everybody to not just our YouTube channel, it'll be podcasted as well, to the Ask ITB that we did on, what did we do, Wednesday night?
Yes.
Which I thought was we had good questions. We've been doing really well with the questions on Ask ITB the last few times. So thanks to everybody who participated. And I thought there were some really thought-provoking questions that we had to tackle.
Don't forget, next week, I will be there this coming Tuesday and Wednesday at Florham Park, New Jersey for the Jets and Eagles leading up to their preseason game on Friday.
Yeah, interesting, by the way, that these two teams are playing in the preseason or actually practicing. Because of the fact that they're playing each other. I remember I was talking to Jason Avant and Quentin Michael before they did Q&A, and they were both a little sheepish about that as former players kind of having joint practices against a team that you're going to play in the regular season. And I remember Nick Sirianni kind of addressed it, and it sounded like he was reluctant at first to do it. But then when they looked at the schedule, it sounded like what he was saying was he and Robert Saleh talked about maybe doing it, but they wanted to see the schedule first. They knew they were going to play each other. They wanted to see when. And when the schedule came out and it wound up that the game was week 13, they felt it was safer to do the joint practices because who you are in week 13 is a lot different than who you are in week 1, 2, or 3. And as you can see with the way they're coaching these preseason games, Adam, they are trying to keep a lot of stuff under wraps, especially defensively. Because Nick Sirianni even admitted, he said, the less we show, the more of an advantage it is for us early in the year when we start to like the Falcons week 1. So I think that the fact that they were playing the Jets that far down helped both Saleh and Sirianni decide that these were going to be more beneficial than they were going to be negative. Because ordinarily, I don't think you would see joint practices against a team you were going to play in the season.
Though I would say this with Robert Saleh, he brings – they know the defense. The Eagles, these coaches know it because he runs his version of Seattle's defense. What you do get, because you could tape the practices, you're going to get at least you could – and obviously by the time, as you're talking about, by the time they play the Jets, they'll have so much tape on what their offense defense looks like. But they'll see their guys will kind of leverage the players used on defense and what kind of feat, like for instance, like if Reagor continues to do well, who did he do well against matchup wise against the Jets in practice? Like that stuff is interesting and potentially key.
It is. I also think it could be at that point by week 13, almost a little over. Like let's say they go back to the tape. This is hypothetical. And let's say they figure, our guy Jamison Crowder, our slot receiver, he really got the best of Zach McPherson. He, worked this double move or he worked that leverage.
Right.
Okay, 13 weeks into the season, Zach McPherson might have learned his lesson on that by that point. So, I mean, you're going to have to analyze that versus the 12 prior weeks of NFL footage that's at your disposal too. So, again, I think that if these two teams were playing in September, these joint practices wouldn't be happening. But
I'd agree.
It's so down the line.
Good point. Very fair.
Also, I want to remind everybody to check out, if they haven't seen it yet, last week's ITB TV, which involved really just you and I, kind of a special edition one where we asked you about your training camp tour. And you had stuff on the Cowboys, you had stuff on the Browns, you had stuff on the Bears, Washington, Chargers, Rams. Who am I missing?
Cowboys.
Giants.
Yeah,
Cowboys. Of course, Cowboys too.
Yeah.
Are you... Who else are you scheduled to see before the end of the month?
So I would say that Ravens, Panthers, to end of the week, and then I'll be in Charlotte. And then next week, the Jets, Eagles, and then I'm going to try to see the Giants because Barkley is ramped up. He's starting to practice more, so I want to see how he looks. Their offensive line, the Giants, is still a problem, as I understand it. So I want to see if they've kind of fixed that issue at all. And then, defensively, they're going to be good. But their issues are more on offense and clearly than defense. So I want to see where they're at. I want to see them one more time.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to have to flag you for taunting there, saying that the Giants don't have a very good offensive line, despite their repeated attempts to fix it. They're very sensitive about what you're saying about them and doing. So I just wanted you to know that you might get fined for taunting on that one. All right. You got to phrase that better. The Giants aren't as capable of blockers as some other teams, as I've seen, is how you should have phrased it. But no, you just came straight out and said they have a bad offensive line. That's wrong.
It's not good
enough to come get you.
yeah. I might get. I might have to jog or do some push-ups. I cannot do push-ups, so for some reason I can't do it.
All right, well, that might be a physical challenge. We may have to do an ITB TV of you just doing push-ups.
I can't. I don't think I could do one.
You can't do one push-up?
I don't. It's the technique. Like I could do sit-ups easily because I'm more flexible these days. There's certain things I could do that I probably couldn't do, but I don't know what it is. It a technique with push-ups? I just don't know how to do it.
I don't know. It's not like defending a wide receiver, and you got to have good leverage there. I mean, you literally just propel your arms against the floor and push it on the up, man.
I gotta watch. I gotta see. That's what YouTube's great for. You can learn how to play tennis like I did. I watch a lot of videos. Isn't it crazy that today YouTube is good for stuff? Believe it or not,
YouTube's good for stuff, but I would think that you can learn how to do a push-up even without YouTube.
We'll have you do it. You show me the way.
I just put palms out, hands on the floor, and you push against the floor until your body raises. It's not that hard, brother.
What camp was they at where they were doing push-ups? Or I don't know if it was the Giants. One of them, the guys were doing extra work because something happened. I can't remember which camp it was, and I was just kind of. It's not the first time I've seen this in 20 years or so doing this thing. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of funny though when they know it, and also. There are certain things that happen in practice. If they screw it up, they got to jog. It's kind of funny to see that.
Can you do a jumping jack, or do you need to
watch with all that
video? Well, I know some people get like the rhythm down wrong. It's like they have their hands clapping while their legs are out at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
How do we digress to this? Sorry, folks. We're gonna get it. I know.
Get over. You need a technique manual on doing a push-up.
We'll save that for the next one.
Yeah, definitely. That might be the next stories podcast. Adam Caplan attempts a push up.
Anyway,
check out we answered a lot of you answered a lot of questions about your training camp tour, and maybe we'll do a second one once you're finished seeing these other teams.
Okay.
Make sure you're checking out InsideTheBirds.com. Please subscribe to it if you can. Get all of our content. Big props to our writer, staff reporter, Andrew DeCecco, because he will be covering tonight's game for Inside the Birds, the Eagles Patriots preseason game. So he'll be there. Make sure you're following him at DeCecco NFL. Get all of his live tweets from the game. I'll still be writing off of it, but he's got the press pass for the night, and he's going to be there doing the interview. So good job by Andrew DeCecco. And all right, let's get into the pod. Of course, we got to remind everybody to check out our friends at Deal Dash. Go to dealdash.com or download the app. When you register, use the promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. That's right. You want bonus free bids at Deal Dash? You just register using the promo code ITB. Okay, Adam, we mentioned we had some transactions and some player news to discuss. And when we start this off, obviously, unfortunately bad news coming from the Eagles, a young player that they really had liked. We have talked about a lot. Tight end Tyree Jackson, going to be out 8 to 10 weeks, a little bone fracture in his back. And, that causes all sorts of roster questions and, development questions, obviously, with him being out for this team. But, in the big picture is that it stinks. I mean, the guy was really having a nice camp, and we had just spoke about him on our ITB TV on the last podcast, just about his coming from kind of seemingly nowhere to really try to make this 53-man roster.
Yeah, I really believe that he would have made it had he just continued on the track that he was on. He's exactly what they were looking for, a guy that they could convert from whether it's a defensive lineman to a tight end, quarterback to a tight end, whatever it is. This is something they've been after for many years, and they finally got this one. Look, they tried with Akeem Butler. It hasn't really worked yet. Jason Kroom was a guy they brought in who was a pretty athletic tight end, but he's not been able to establish himself. And then Tyree Jackson, as you said, seemingly came out of nowhere, and it was really the story at training camp. And other than Jordan Mailata's development and Hargrave, he really was what an incredible story, and a good job by the Eagles to find this guy to play tight end, and it looked like it was well on its way. So now that leaves them 5 healthy tight ends, and I know people want to know about Ertz and Goddard and Rodgers and Stoll. We certainly could talk about that.
Yeah, we can, but let's focus in on Tyree and what this means for his future first.
Yeah.
I do think I agree with you. I think he was trending toward making the 53. Now, we know that the last few players who make the 53 sometimes are almost like extra practice squad players because they're inactive on game day. They still need development. They just didn't want to risk cutting that player, waiving him, and then losing him on the wire, right? And that's probably the what they had to think through with Tyree Jackson. I don't think he was going to play early on, even if he made the 53, but you wanted to have him on the team to continue his development. So here's the thing. I think they can still do this, right? Assuming like by the time this comes out, they don't make any move, but they can probably still put him on the 53 coming out of camp, even though he's hurt, and then waive a guy like a Richard Rodgers or a Hassan Ridgeway, a T.Y. McGill, someone they want on the team, but that they're not afraid is going to get claimed. And then once the season begins, like the very next day, right, what you can do is then put Tyree Jackson on IR, and then with that roster spot, you can bring back the player that you waived, whether it's Richard Rodgers or T.Y. McGill or Hassan Ridgeway. So I don't know what the Eagles are going to do here, but I do think they can still sneak him onto the team without having to cut him or waive him and risk somebody else signing him. However, what if they did just waive him at the deadline at the end of August, right? I mean, is anyone going to claim an injured developmental tight end who still is probably going to be a few weeks away? Because if you claim that player, you got to put him on your 53. It's a little bit of a roll of the dice, but I think both of those options seem feasible for the Eagles.
Yeah, so here's how I would unpack it. So because he's not vested, you would have to injure him, hope that he passes through waivers, because if you want to put him on IR, the only way you can do it now is you would injure him. He doesn't get claimed. He reverts to injury reserve. That's the rule. Now, if they don't want to take that risk, they have to hold him to the 53. Then they put him at 4 p.m. Eastern on the 31st of August, which is now less than 2 weeks. They could put him on IR then. That's really their choice. Now, what you're suggesting is what we call the roster tango. So that's a term that scouts use, or personnel people. With Richard Rodgers, he's a vested veteran. Mm-hmm. What they would do is they would work it out if they wanted to do this and keep Jackson over Rodgers, just so they didn't lose Jackson. Is they'd say, "Hey, Richard, listen." They tell his agent, he and Frank Bauer, his agent, "Listen, we want you don't go anywhere, stay in town. We want to keep Jackson, but we have to hold his roster spot. So just stay there. You're not going anywhere, and you'll be back with us next week." And then you're right, absolutely right. This goes on all the time around the National Football League. Noah Togiai, they lost last year. Everybody knows who's listened to our show. I know they're sick of hearing it, but this is a guy they really loved, and they know that it turned out to be a mistake just because it was a developmental guy they liked who could block, by the way, really could block. That's where they don't have him. So that's it. I mean, it's pretty much what they could do. So right now they're down to one less healthy tight end.
Right. So now let's look at the overall tight end picture. It's Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Richard Rodgers, and Jack Stoll. I know they've got some other guys like Jason Kroom. So it'll be interesting to see how they work that rotation, like in the preseason game tonight against the Patriots, because I can't imagine that Ertz is going to play a whole lot. And so we'll probably have to see Goddard and Ertz for a little bit in the first, and then you're probably going to have to play Richard Rodgers a little bit there in the second. He's a veteran. You want to keep him healthy. But it's going to be a lot of Jack Stoll and Jason Kroom, I would think, from halftime on. And plus, you can also get creative. You can play more 4 wide. You can throw in an extra offensive lineman as a tight end. So they'll be able to make do. But with Tyree out of the picture right now, as far as opening day and being on the roster, and Zach Ertz still in flux, I think for Jack Stoll, it just solidifies the fact that he's going to be on this 53 unless he's really terrible, right? Because now if you do wind up getting rid of Zach Ertz, I mean, you're going to have Goddard, Richard Rodgers, and then you're going to need a third tight end. And it's right now it would be Stoll.
Yeah, Stoll, by the way, is a willing blocker. He's decent at it. He was more advanced than Tyree Jackson. Well, Tyree Jackson, again, as we said, he was a willing blocker. He wasn't bad at it. He was a little bit better than they expected. Willing to put his nose in. That's a scouting term. He was kind of he kind of had an idea of what to do. So now with him out of the picture, they'll have to get through this game with one less tight end, and they'll, like as you said, there are things that they can do to alleviate the issue. But it's a shame. It really is. The thing is, I'm almost certain he came back into practice after he hurt his back because he left, and I mean he was number 80. I could have sworn I saw him. There was only the 80s I know about are Goddard, Rodgers, and Stoll. Stoll's 85, and obviously Jackson's 6'7". He kind of stands out.
Oh yeah.
So nevertheless, okay, whatever. He's out of the picture now. Good story. Good job of scouting by the Eagles, and they know him now, and that away they go.
Yeah, you're right. It's a shame. It's too bad. This is what makes Eagles fans always say this is why we can't have nice things, because things were going so well. And now he's sidelined for about 2 months and maybe longer. We'll see what happens when he gets back. A lot of questions now facing the Eagles at the tight end position. All right, so there were some recent transactions. The Eagles needed to shave off 3 guys from the roster, and they were able to do that on Tuesday, I believe it was, or was it Monday that they announced that?
Tuesday.
Right.
Yes.
No real surprises. Luke Juriga, the center, Casey Tucker, and running back Kerryon Johnson. Now, the way they announced it confused me. I think all 3 were waived injured, correct?
Yes, they all were. And yeah, in fact, Tucker had been out for a while. Right. Look, Johnson, Juriga, and Tucker were not expected to make the team anyway. To me, the running back situation has pretty much been cleared up. It's one of the few positions on the football team where you go, okay, I kind of see where this is headed here. We kind of know what it looks like. Whereas, okay, offensive line, we know who the starters are. We have a decent idea of who the backups will be, though. Like guys like Brett Toth are getting good work in, outside chance to make it. Receiver-wise, we know who they are, but we don't know what the rotation's going to be quite yet. Running back-wise, we know what the roles are, the rotations. We'll get into what we see the preseason preview looks like for running back this game. And then defensively, D-tackle, we get to see what that rotation is. Corner, the backup rotation, linebacker, needs to sort itself out. It's what I would tell you is that these joint practices and the preseason games really will help go to determine kind of what the pecking order is for a lot of these positions.
Definitely. Let's go back to Juriga for a second, because I thought there was a little bit of a tip-off. I don't know. When suddenly in the middle of camp, Sayamalo's been out since day one, right? He's just coming back now doing some stuff. But it was, as you would expect, the first guy to fill in for Sayamalo at left guard was Nate Herbig. And Nate Herbig lost all this weight, was having what we thought was decent camps. And then all of a sudden, Sua Opeta was there at left guard, and Nate Herbig was running with the second team at center, which is his more natural position. He's played guard at the NFL, but he's really made the team 2 years ago as a backup center. And he's basically been the second string center ever since, which was not great news for a guy like Luke Juriga, who they did like. They gave him a decent amount of money last year when he made the team or when he was on the practice squad, I guess. I forget. Did he make the 53?
Juriga, I don't remember.
He was either with the team on the 53 or the practice squad at one point. But I don't know. I thought that there was a tell there that they were set with Jason Kelce at center. They were now working Nate Herbig at backup center and taking a look at Sua Opeta at left guard. And I think Herbig is run at second team center pretty much mostly now throughout camp. So I wonder if that's his spot now, because they expect if there's any injuries at guard that Driscoll can play guard, which they've been doing with him, or that they're thinking Landon Dickerson will at least be back, early enough in the season to kind of take over that spot if need be.
See, here's the thing with Dickerson, because he's never practiced yet. Even if they take him off active NFI to start the season, he's got to need the 4 weeks. I mean, you can't just throw the guy in there. He needs work, so you can't count on him no matter what until early. September to me is still very iffy, no matter what they do with him.
Right.
you've got Herbig, who could play center or guard, who did lose the weight. He's not any more athletic all of a sudden. I mean, he just lost weight and he can move better.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see on Pryor. We know he's had some up and down days, and you mentioned Opeta. Driscoll's definitely on the team, and Raven Clark. Yeah, we should mention. He's
back,
off a little bit earlier than expected. Right. Off of what was he on? NFI.
He was on PUP.
Okay,
that
PUP.
was a football injury.
Right. So it's just a matter of with these guys getting a little bit more tape, particularly Clark, whenever he's ready to play, because he could wind up being the swing tackle. That's kind of what we had heard that was their hope.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. So it's starting to shape up their backups. It's just a matter of do they keep 8, 9, or 10? We don't know. It's a little bit early for that.
So back to Kerryon Johnson. You're right. We were able to see pretty early in camp that Jordan. Well, we saw in OTAs, Adam. We reported in the OTAs that Jordan Howard showed up in good shape, ready to go. I think I mentioned on last podcast that the organization really likes him. Deuce Staley was a huge fan of Jordan Howard. One of the reasons that they were able to, bring him back last year, even when it looked like he numerically or statistically he might be washed up. He was not. He was just not part of that offense. But he still needed to get in better shape. Even he admitted that he had no offers other than the Eagles. But it was pretty evident early on that he had a renewed sense about him, and he was, coming to the organization that really respects him, and he was able to make that work. I remember when Andrew DeCecco and I did our training camp preview in July, leading into camp, we took some position battles and wrote who was going to win. And running back, he predicted Kerryon Johnson. I went with Jordan, but I wrote that, talent for talent, Kerryon Johnson's more talented. The problem is he hasn't stayed healthy. And his other obstacle is that the Eagles just really like Jordan Howard. And I said, somehow I see Jordan Howard prevailing here. But the biggest thing was Kerryon had to stay healthy, which he did not do, obviously being waived injured. So he didn't really give himself enough of a chance to really fight for this job. But again, sort of like the Mailata Dillard thing, it felt like Jordan Howard entered training camp as it's his job to lose, and he never did anything to even come close to losing it.
Yeah, and Kerryon Johnson, we're told, did not look particularly good in their OTAs, where he came in on the outside looking in to make the roster, and he had maybe a week where you go, okay, he's starting to progress, let's see what happens. Then he's had recurring issues with one of his knees, so that he had that, and we talked about this on the live stream. We know who the four are. It's Sanders, Scott, obviously, Gainwell, and Howard. And Howard, if Sanders were to suffer an injury, that he's the guy who would be the main ball carrier. Now, it doesn't mean, again, that Scott wouldn't be heavily involved. He would be. He's had a very good camp. And I know Howard, people talk about his ability to protect, and that's certainly true. He can do that, but he's not a guy you ever throw the ball to. The way I understood it, under Peterson, they never designed anything for Howard to catch the football. It was checkdowns when there was no one else to throw the football, and the quarterbacks would just dump it off to him if they couldn't get anyone open. Whereas with Boston Scott, you're going to design stuff. Look, if Sanders can't play, I could certainly see Scott getting 3 to 4 catches, 5 to 7 carries, Jordan Howard getting 10 to 13 carries, and no catches, where Howard might get more touches totally, but it would be a 2-man backfield. And then you've got Gainwell as that sort of joker running back who I don't know that he carries it, but he certainly could catch the football.
Yeah, it seems like you feel, and I'm not disagreeing with you, that Boston Scott has earned not just like a role as in someone gets hurt, you have to go get a few carries, but should be on the field because of how well he catches the football now. He's always caught the football well. Right.
And then I think you'd mentioned this on our last show, like Sirianni doesn't even hit it. He talked about how their backs are going to catch the football.
Right.
The reason why I did is because if you're at a practice, right, I don't know if it's purposeful, just the scheme, whatever the case may be. Sanders, we've talked about his issues with ball security, holding onto the football, trying to run before he secures it. That's an issue. Scott's really good at it. Gainwell's really good at it. I don't know that he's had more work than all the other guys at catching the football, but sure looks like every practice he's getting more pass targets and carries. So and Sirianni's background and as a receiver in college and his staff and so forth. So yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a different offense than Doug Peterson's for sure.
No doubt about it. All right, other injuries just worth mentioning real quick. I mean, we know Dillard still is out with the sprained knee. We know Davian Taylor is still out with the calf. I mean, these not good situations for both of them as far as missing the reps and the snaps. Kevon Wallace was limited, so he's not week to week anymore. He was doing a little bit of stuff at practice. We'll see if he plays at all against the Patriots. Derek Barnett kind of showed up with a shoulder injury, which ordinarily is not a concern. It's because he's day to day, but he had one last year too. He has a little bit of a history there with the shoulder injury, so something to monitor because he was having a pretty good camp.
Did he have surgery a couple of years ago on one of his shoulders?
I thought he did, didn't he?
I thought he did, yeah. So it's something, as you said, it's something to monitor. Oh, we're told on Dillard he should start working back next week, whatever that means. We don't know if it's limited, it's full. I couldn't tell you, but what we heard is that the expectations will start working next week. Kerryon with his thumb, it's too bad because they haven't been able to get him to do what they need him to do as a stand-up pass rusher. And we saw it early in camp before he hurt his thumb, but we'll see what it looks like in once the regular season starts. Hargrave is the new one. Hargrave, Barnett are new. Hargrave is day-to-day with the ankle. Craig James is now not week-to-week anymore. He's day-to-day with a foot. Jacoby Stevens, I saw him in practice with his thigh wrapped. He's got the hamstring in. Elliott's new with the ankle. And that's pretty much it right now.
You have to hope the ankle thing is not that bad, or else who kicks to against the Patriots in a game, or do they just go for two every time they score?
That would actually be, it's so fun. I just thought of that. I would love to see that. Because Sirianni has not really hinted or indicated how aggressive he'll be compared to Doug Peterson on fourth down calls and so forth. So I'm interested to see what that would look like. Well,
I don't really understand why coaches don't always go for two in the preseason after touchdowns just to work on it, because how much work do your kickers need on PATs? I mean, if you take last game, for example, Eagles versus Steelers, Jake Elliott got plenty of action on his 3 field goals, 50, 47, 47. The touchdown that they scored, why not go for two and just kind of practice that offense? You can run a play that, is a vanilla play just to see if it works, if you're afraid of giving away anything. So I'm surprised we don't see that more.
True. We will see.
All right, let's talk about some of the developments in practice. We'll start with the offense. Jalen Hurts, it felt like he was, of all the 3 quarterbacks there, Hurts and Cam Newton, the 3 big ones, Hurts, Cam Newton, Mac Jones. Hurts kind of established himself as the guy on the field. I mean, I know it's preseason. I know it's just practice, but I thought it was important for him to come off that Steelers game where he looked good at him and then put together some good practices. I know he had 2 interceptions in the first one, although I think they were deflections or off the hands. But in general, I thought it was really important for him to kind of carry over the good game against the Steelers into practice against the Patriots.
Yeah. So, and here's the way it was explained to us. On Monday, it wasn't just that, okay, like let's say he was 17 for 18, okay? Stats can be misleading. It's all about the tape. What did it look like? A guy could be 5 of 10 and had a great practice. You need better context than just numbers. Numbers don't mean anything. You need to know exactly where the throws were. In the game of the 2 drops, the one to Reagor is okay. You want to say he should have caught it? Okay, I don't have a problem with it, but the throw was too low. It was an inaccurate throw. The other one was not to Ertz. He put it right on him. He just dropped it. It just no one around him. A rare drop for Zach like that. It is what it is. But what we understand is in Monday, he was super accurate. Felt he was in a rhythm in team drills. That's what you want. You just want to start getting the ball out, get into rhythm, get your timing down. It was his best practice, arguably, of training camp. That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, definitely a good thing. And of course, another great practice. Well, I wouldn't say great practice. Another great individual showing from Jalen Reagor. He makes this unbelievable catch in a red zone drill, one-handed, goes up high. I mean, the vertical, there's so much in that. I'm sure you've seen it by now. Were you there? You might have been there.
Tuesday. Yeah, I was, but were
you watching the big guys go at it?
What's that?
Were you watching the linemen drill?
Yes, it's funny you say it. The first thing I love watching one-on-ones with the linemen. It's so funny. I don't know how you knew that, but you're right. When they're doing the one-on-ones, you're either watching wide receivers versus D-backs or defensive linemen versus exactly. Good call. D linemen versus O linemen on both Patriots and Eagles. But I'd heard about it, and then I after practice somebody, I don't know how someone put the video out, and then the Eagles did on their social. But what I would tell you on Monday, though, Reagor was really good. You were there you were at that practice, right?
No, that one I wasn't able to make. No.
Okay. All right. But what we're told is Reagor, that was one of his best practices.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, though, what we're told with Reagor is his focus. We don't, I don't know the guy, but I just know that what we hear is when he doesn't do well, the focus needs to be better. That seems to be his consistent issue.
Yep.
But when he's focused, sometimes nobody can handle him. Like he's so you don't find guys who are 5'10" built like this.
Right.
He's just got this build, physically gifted. Mm-hmm. He was one of the elite explosive receivers. And talk in terms of off the line, it was your guy from Penn State who the Broncos drafted.
Hamler.
It's KJ Hamler, Henry Ruggs, and Reagor for the 2020 draft.
Right.
And now we're seeing flashes of it, but he's got to be more consistent. But the good thing is, after a very rough start to training camp, which I still don't quite understand,
mm-hmm.
He is really starting to put some things together. But what he needs to know as a professional, there's no reason why you can't dominate most practices. And in year 2 now, hopefully he's starting to feel it, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, somebody must have pissed in his Cheerios the day before the joint practices start, because he came out both days like just raring to go. I agree with you. Consistency is the big thing with him. And there are practices where he's making these highlight reel catches, but he's also dropping some passes in the team drills. He's got to be a better hands catcher. But it's so much better to at least see him showing up. His route running is getting better. That you can tell. You can just watch his footwork on his releases and his energy through the entire stem and see that that's a lot different than this time last year. You're right. The focus got to be there. And really, it kind of accentuates, Adam, this whole wide receiver group, which is, as we understand it, it's still kind of a challenge for these coaches, right? I mean, we've got Devontae Smith, who the only concern is keeping him healthy. He's already had an injury, but there's no concern about his work ethic, his focus, his attention to detail, his knowledge of the playbook. This guy checks off every single box. There's a reason he went top 10 and the Eagles traded up to get him. But after that, you have a variety of receivers who have different strengths and weaknesses, and they all really have to be coached hard right now. They are getting coached hard. And I think there was a little bit too much Quez Watkins love after the preseason game. Not that he doesn't deserve it. He's had a very good camp, and certainly he showed you his speed on that screen and then even getting open along the left sideline. But, as we understand it with Quez, for some people, you started to see the headlines. Is he ready to be a starter? He's running with the first team now. Is he their second best wide receiver? And I think you and I can both unequivocally say, slow down on that, because there are still challenges with him like there are the other receivers. He's right now a guy who, I think you said this the other night on our Q&A, on our live stream, a perfect way of saying he's a package player. You get him in on the field in certain packages to stretch the field when you want to go deep against certain looks, but he's not ready to be on the field for 65, 75% of the offense. From what we understand, he's still a guy who has to be coached hard, both behind the scenes and on the field. Alignment, knowing the playbook, being invested, focus, as you mentioned with Jalen Reagor. All of that comes into play. For the coaches to be able to completely trust him to play him that much, the way fans, or people were saying like he could be a starter, he's still got to show a whole lot more investment in everything that he does there than just what you've seen kind of on the surface so far.
Yeah, well said. With Quez, the term that coaches use is he's rotational deep threat. That means 50 to 20 snaps if he does everything like he's supposed to. Remember, folks, until coming into training camp, he was on the outside looking in. He needed to earn his way on the roster. Mm-hmm. You don't make the team because you've had 2 great weeks of training camp. It don't work that way. You've got to approach your job like it's your last and have that urgency that coaches talk about. And if he continues to do that, he'll be on the team as their 5th receiver. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be a starter. That's not going to happen. It's never been discussed. It's just not. I don't know what. I mean, I'll admit I was blown away by not only what I saw in training camp, but just what we've been hearing in terms of he's just very unique because he's not. Sometimes you see 5'8" guys who are explosive. He's
right.
got
some decent size. Yeah.
So look, hey, he needs to keep it going, and they're very young. we've talked about this before. One of only 2 NFL teams to not have a vested veteran on the roster at receiver, and this is their Eagles' plan. And we'll see what they do on August 31st or after that. Do they add a veteran after that initial 53 cut down, which is now less than 2 weeks, by the way? The next cut is this coming Tuesday, the 24th. So we'll see who gets released.
Yeah, so you look at the challenge for this group, for the coaches in the front office. It's that after Devontae Smith as your one, right, and Jalen Reagor is still your 2, and you're kind of hoping that he continues to get better and better and carry over what he's doing. But and Greg Ward is a reliable guy. It's not like they need to see anything more. They know what Greg Ward is. He's great between the ears, smart guy, everything. He just has a limited amount of explosion, right? But he's still good enough to be on this team and be reliable and helpful. But we just talked about Quez. John Hightower is a guy who comes back from an injury. It hurt him to miss some time. He's a guy who, as we've outlined many times, has good football intelligence, smart guy, but they question his passion for the game, his love for the game. Does he really want to do this? It's funny. The way it was put to me, John Hightower, really smart guy, questions the love of the game. Quez Watkins, maybe not like John with the football intelligence, but does have the passion for the game. So it's almost like if you can combine both of their strengths, you'd get a pretty good wide receiver. But I would have to say, when we're talking about receivers here, Adam, you and I think when we went to training camp, figured, Fulgham's going to be on the team. He's got a lot of work to do, but he's got the size, and you saw the ability last year. And he's had a quiet camp, and I'm starting to get the vibe that they really want to see him step up, like go out there, fight. All right, Quez Watkins got some first-team reps. What does that mean for you? Are you going to go out there and fight and get the ball and present yourself as a target and, assert yourself on the field? Because we have not seen him do that yet at training camp, and that raises yet another question mark about the position. What is Travis Fulgham at this point?
Right, and just so we understand, starting is about how many snaps that they play. I know technically it's who's out there for the first play. That's true,
right?
But it always comes down to how many snaps that these guys get at whatever position they play. It's going to be a 4-man rotation with Watkins in there in the mix because of what he does, which is pretty interesting. Obviously, with downfield plays, and now we saw the slot screen for the big touchdown. The good thing is they've got versatility with this group. The one guy who's going to be in the rotation with size is Fulgham. And Reagor and Smith, obviously, the speed guys, and Ward's a possession guy. So they've got some different attributes these guys have, and these coaches are getting to know these players. I'm talking about Sirianni and the new staff, not Aaron Moorhead, but we'll see. It's always good to be young, but other than Smith, and Ward, who are really the guys you could count on to bring it each game? That's going to be the challenge here, and that's what these coaches have to get them to do over these final 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play, let's say you had to play the Falcons tomorrow, season opener, and you're going to be in 11 personnel, who knows? Because who knows what we'll talk about the tight end situation in a minute. Who are your top 3 receivers? I would say right now the guys who are going to get the most amount of snaps if they had to play tomorrow would be Devontae Smith, assuming full health, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, and Greg Ward. I just don't know how much Fulgham is going to get on the field. He has not done anything in camp yet.
He's been uneven, is what we've heard.
Yeah, I shouldn't say he's not done anything. I don't want to make it sound like he's had a terrible camp. He just has not asserted himself to the way where you were hoping he would kind of look like that guy from that 4-week stretch.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because if you look at that 4-week stretch last season, that stretch, if Devontae Smith could ever do that in his first 2 years, like that kind of run, I mean, that he looked like Fulgham looked like a top 15 receiver. That's how great he was. Not good, great he was. He just annihilated the Steelers secondary. It's a pretty good defense, so their secondary is not as good as the defense overall. But nevertheless, he showed a lot of upside. And then, we heard that it's a confidence issue. It's there's a reason why the Packers and Lions cut him, as we'd reported on our show last season.
Right.
The Lions coaches didn't want him on the roster. That's the fact. So this is what you got to deal with Fulgham. I think he feels like he should be seeing more snaps. That was what we were told last season. I think he was asked by the media here. It sounds like the Jeffrey situation when Fulgham kind of got the full-time job taken away from him. It seemed to impact him, other than the ankle injury, which we reported, which turned out to be a surgery. So we'll see. He's gifted, but you got to bring it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that that's a good summation of him is that he tends to when if somebody else is getting snaps or if the situation's not going his way, it tends to bother him. And instead of making him fight for more, he kind of gets down on it. And so that's why the coaches have to continue to ride him and coach him up. And it seems like that's just with this group. This is why we've said probably could use a veteran, and maybe they'll add one before the start of the season. I don't know. I mean, the pickings are slim out there right now, but there will be some cuts, and we'll see what happens with that group. All right, let's move over to the defense and talk about one thing, Javon. We should talk about Hargrave because he's been nothing short of dominant all throughout camp, and he was against the Steelers in the preseason game as well.
Yeah, Hargrave has been their best player. He's been the best player at training camp. He is now number one over Jordan Mailata. He is, from what we're hearing, at times being unblockable. So let me ask you this: like when you said on our show last March of 2020, right before they signed him, I'm saying maybe it was February, I don't remember. But why did the Eagles like Hargrave so much? Do you recall?
Well, I know that they were looking at defensive tackle class in general. They wanted to have a strong rotation at DT, right? They had Fletcher Cox, they had Malik Jackson coming off the injury. And they wanted to have a strong three DT group. And, they always focus on the trenches anyway. They were interested in two defensive tackles, if I recall correctly. One, obviously, was Javon Hargrave. The other was the guy from the Saints, David Onyemata, right? Did I pronounce that correctly?
David Onyemata, unfortunately.
Onyemata.
Yeah, he just got suspended 6 games. Yeah.
I know. How about that? Crazy, right? But, and so – and remember, they were also chasing Byron Jones there, and they were not able to get Byron Jones. He went to Miami for the big money, so they turned around and were able to get Javon Hargrave. The big question would they have been able to get both of those guys? Would Howie have made it work where he would have signed both Jones and Hargrave that year? That would have been pretty interesting to see. Instead, they wound up making the trade for Darius Slay. But the point is, they felt like they needed more, especially youth. In the trenches there, especially with Jim Schwartz at the time as their coordinator, and they wanted more of a rotation there because they were on Hassan Ridgeway at that point. Malik Jackson had gotten hurt, if you remember, so it was Fletcher Cox, and they went through Hassan Ridgeway and T.Y. McGill, and who's the guy that went to the Raiders as well? What was his name?
Yeah, I know the guy who flashed a little bit. Yeah.
Trayvon Hester.
That would be one of them, but the other guy was the guy that they had, and then they got rid of him. They with the Raiders, and they got him back, and they cut him, and he's bounced around. I know who you talk about.
Yeah. So remember, 2019, Fletcher he was getting double teamed and triple teamed because there was nobody else with Malik Jackson injured all year for them to really fear. So that's why they went out.
Anthony Rush. Thank
you. That was the one too. The big 350 pounder, right?
Yeah. He's had some injuries, still bouncing around, but.
Right.
Look, Hargrave has been unblockable. He's great leverage. He's got this ability to get underneath the offensive lineman and being low to the ground. He's just over 6'1", 32-inch arms. He's just got great get off, and he's been he's so strong. And as you were saying, to me, Hargrave's going to be Eagles' breakout player. Mm-hmm. He did play better in the second half. He had that pectoral strain. He basically missed all training camp, and I'm interested to see, because the Eagles potentially are going to be so strong on the lines, what this looks like, and can they stay in some of these games where you say, "Man, I'm surprised they played so well." Well, you know what? If you're so strong on the offensive defensive lines, you got a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into the linebacker situation first. I want to remind everyone that everyone's favorite time of the year is right around the corner, college football season, and to celebrate, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting new players in the center of the action with $200 in free bets instantly if you bet $1 or more on any college football game. Take advantage of this limited time offer now. You heard right. DraftKings is giving all new players $200 in free bets instantly when you place a bet of $1 or more on any college football game, no matter what. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Check out all the great promotions and daily odds boosts that they're offering. DraftKings Sportsbook is safe, secure, and reliable, located right here in the U.S. of A., so it's easy to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code ITB to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any college football game. That's promo code ITB to get your free $200 in free bets instantly. That's a lot of free right there for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's talk about this linebacker group because it's been interesting. I've enjoyed seeing some of the development there. We'll talk about some of it. I know you want to talk about, is it deeper than we thought? We always talk about depth doesn't mean you have a lot of bodies. It means you have players you can play.
Is it better?
In the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're somewhere in between for me, Adam. They have depth because I've liked seeing some of the I like the kid Patrick Johnson. He's looked good. We're seeing Jannard Avery and Osman try to jockey for that Sam position. We've seen Alex Singleton come back, play well. So they've got some good competition here. I still don't know if this is like a formidable group, but it may be an adequate group.
Well, again, Wilson's here for the defense. Let's assume he'll be good as a Mike linebacker. Mm-hmm. He clearly will be a nickel or dime. I would assume he'll be their dime linebacker too. So he'll be a 3-down linebacker. Mm-hmm. Singleton's a tackling machine. We know that. So T.J. Edwards is better than he was last year. He's in better shape. He's moving better. He's clearly a factor. So you got those three for sure. Davion Taylor looked like he was coming on, but he's been hurt most of camp, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So, the Sam role, because it's not technically a starting role, it's a sub-package role and a certain package role, potentially, depending on how they want to do it.
Right.
Avery Osman and your guy, Patrick Johnson. We have to see what that winds up looking like in terms of snaps. I have no idea. I just know that what we were told in OTAs is that they were going to move Avery from DN to Sam linebacker. They're doing that. But again, we don't know. Is that a 10-snap a game guy, 30 snaps? Don't know.
Right. No, I have no idea. It's interesting. I think right now you go in and you know that Singleton and Wilson are your top two guys. T.J. Edwards is your number 3. He's reliable. He can fill in. He's a little bit limited, but better than what he's been the last 2 years. Davion Taylor is going to make the team, but I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to play until he actually gets out there and practice. So, I mean, the first few weeks is, I think, looking a little shaky for him of the regular season. And after that, we'll see how the competition shakes out. Sean Bradley had done some nice things on special teams last year and in his limited roles on defense last year, but I think he's getting pushed by some of these other guys, like a Patrick Johnson here. Yeah,
I'm not saying Bradley won't make it, but if he does, I would expect him to only play on special teams. I know he had a run early in camp. He got some snaps with the ones, but they were rolling everybody in. Pretty much Rashad Smith, before he got hurt, was working with the ones. Because remember, folks, they did not have any teamwork in OTAs. He only had one-on-ones, so they don't really know these players. Think about it.
Right.
They're learning about these players. The coaches are in training camp because they didn't have much exposure to them because they didn't do team stuff. So this is now they're getting preseason work too, so they're going to get a better idea.
Yeah, I remember I couldn't figure out who the first team linebackers were outside of Wilson early on because Edward. This was when Singleton was still on the COVID list. Edwards was in there. Jacoby Stevens was in there. Rashad Smith was in there. It was just like a blender, man. You just mix it all up and pick one out. So do you like this linebacker group more so than last year's?
I do.
Probably because there's no Nate Gary, right?
Right. Well, look, Wilson's a better football player than anyone they had.
Yeah.
Singleton is just a good football player. T.J. Edwards is probably better than he was. So you've upgraded. Your overall group is better. But 4 and 5, who knows? And that's kind of where they are heading into this game.
Do you think Edwards is an upgrade over Duke Riley, or kind of they're different kind of guys? Because Duke was very athletic,
right? But Duke, right? You're right. Duke could cover, but he's not as physical as Edwards,
right?
Now, obviously, Wilson's not as good against the run because this is what we were talking about in OT, our shows in May and June. If you're playing a heavy run team, right? Wilson may not be on the field as much as he normally would be. Maybe Edwards gets more snaps than he normally would get. That's your ability to mix and match due to challenges with the opponent.
Right. Well, real quick before we get into the game preview,
Yep.
What have you gotten on Steve Nelson, if anything, from this camp?
I would say that he's given up some plays when the pass target got behind him, which is he's a smart, tough, gritty, physical, not a big guy, 5'10" range, but a better than average quarter you can win with, but you understand who he is and what he's not. He's not a speed guy. Like, if you're going to match up against a speed guy, he better get his hands on you. If not, there are going to be some plays made downfield.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he's going to get a lot of targets just because he's not Darius Slay.
Not right? that. It's funny you say that, because
throw the ball at him a lot.
It's funny you say it, because in practice on Tuesday, was it Tuesday? Yeah, it was Tuesday. Someone mentioned to me, he goes, who had been at every practice, said to me, well, he goes, I don't know if you've noticed this, but anyone who plays opposite Slay, it's getting the ball thrown at him because he's not Darius Slay. Where Slay has been their most consistent corner in training camp. Now, McPherson is the guy we need to see more of in this preseason game. I want to see how he if the ones are out early in this game against the Patriots, I know the Patriots receiver core is probably below average. Still, I'd like to see McPherson, if they're not going to play Nelson and Slay much on the outset, I'd like to see McPherson get work with the ones. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I think it's I'd like to see him not only get work with the ones, but almost see them use him on the outside and the inside, just to see all of his versatility on display.
Sure.
So that actually will parlay really well into our game preview against the Patriots. Again, it's the second and the final one at home for the Eagles, and then their last preseason game will be against the Jets up at MetLife. It's still called MetLife Stadium, right? Yeah, MetLife Stadium.
Yes.
In East Rutherford. So the big question is, does the offense play more? Does Jalen Hurts in the first team offense play more against the Patriots? I'll tell you, Q&A on their show that dropped Wednesday morning, they were a little disappointed both in how many snaps Jalen Hurts played and also Jonathan Gannon being very vanilla on defense. They just felt like with a smaller preseason schedule that you need to work on a lot more things. And, 2 series was not enough for Jalen. And, Q, as being the defensive player that he is, was hoping to see a little bit more. Everybody's been fed by us and other people all of this. Jonathan Gannon's going to do this and that. It's going to be so amazing. And then he goes out there and looks like Jim Schwartz, except with two safeties deep instead of one. So I can understand why everybody felt a little unsatisfied. They have, their appetites are wet for something exotic, but I don't know that you're going to see it. I feel like this coaching staff is pretty set in its ways of feeling that there's an advantage for at least the first few games of the year not to have anything on tape for them.
I mean, honestly, I don't see, you just don't. Talking to coaches for years, you just don't show anything. You just run some plays. You want them to execute whatever you're asking on offense and defense. Like, for instance, okay, let's start with offense. We know Kenny Gainwell can catch the football. That's why he's here. But the question is, I want to see him as a runner. Okay, you're not really giving anyone anything special on tape. Sure. You just want him to run. And with Jalen Hurts, it's about executing plays more. I'd like to see him play into the second quarter. Like, he basically played the entire first quarter, which we expect, I think, all but one series. Okay, but he had 2 series. Fact of the matter is, they need more work. It's just because, again, they didn't have 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s in OTAs. These guys need more time and practice together, get their timing down with these new offensive defenses.
Do you think Jalen will play about a half against the Patriots?
I would think certainly into the second quarter. Now, what I thought Ruben Frank asked a great question, and this is the way coaches think. It's, let's say their game plan is for him to play a full half, right? But if he's playing lights out into the second quarter, pull him. You've seen what you need to see. You don't get any wins or losses on your record. They don't count. These are exhibition games. But it's kind of what you want certain things to be executed. If he doesn't, pull him, and then get Flacco work with the twos, and get the other kid who was horrendous in the last game,
Nick Mullins.
Yeah, he needs work. So although I hate to say that, because he's working with no net. He's working with threes. He didn't play well, but look, he didn't have a lot of help, and it was a struggle, to say the least.
Right. Now, how do you think I think Jalen Reagor's got to play, because remember, they limited his snaps in the first game. He was still coming back from a conditioning standpoint. I would like to see him play a decent amount more. Obviously, we want to see Quez Watkins be able to get in there. I think they got to play Fulgham and Arcega-Whiteside a decent amount just to see if these guys can show up, though. I mean, they've got – when I say play, you got a whole game, but I mean play early. I want to see them on the field with Hurts at times to see if they can do anything to establish themselves.
Question for you, because you've talked about Fulgham a lot on the show. Do you think his roster spot's in jeopardy?
I think it potentially is in jeopardy. I do.
It's an opinion. I know you're not reporting.
Yeah. This is just
so people
because
understand.
I'm going through the numbers here.
Yeah.
It's going to be it'll be hard because they're just not
they don't have
talented at wide receiver, right? So like if you're going to keep 5, you've got Devontae Smith, you've got Reagor, you've got Ward. That's your top 3. Definitely Watkins is 4. He's going to make it. So Fulgham really has to beat out Arcega-Whiteside, Osborne. Who am I missing? There's got to be another wide receiver.
Well, yeah, it's Mark and Michelle.
Oh, Mark and is it Michael? I always get
no,
that.
It's Michelle. Remember, it's Sony Michelle and
Michelle, right?
Mark and Michelle.
Right, Mark and Michelle. Yeah. So I mean, almost by default, he's going to make it unless the team brings in a veteran or something.
That's what,
and then he becomes in jeopardy. Yeah.
Right, and that's what I was talking about. August 31st. We'll see. It's not having a veteran to me was a mistake. It's not like they didn't know that this group needed to mature a little bit. We're not talking about Ward or Devontae Smith. It's just the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about Arcega-Whiteside anyway, because I mean, I guess there's an outside chance he makes the team. He's done some good things. He does give them size.
Yep.
And you mentioned that special teams play he made, so we'll see. You're right, absolutely right. They need a lot of work, and it would behoove them to play a full half with Hurts just to get the timing down and get some confidence going against the New England defense.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is definitely that they want him to be able to make the 53 on merit, and that they're a little disappointed that this far into camp, you just haven't seen enough consistency from him.
Yeah, and
he's got the talent.
And it's interesting because think about it. He's not competing against any veteran for that X role.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. I know that this coach staff doesn't like to deem X, Y, and Z, but fact of the matter is that outside role, right? They talk about outside receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, they've handed him an ability to start. He just has not been consistent enough. So this is another opportunity. And quite frankly, running back, again, we want to see Gainwell, and then to close out the offense. The guys like Herbig and Pryor, who this guy won't go away. It's the final year of his rookie contract. Raven Clark. We'll see.
Raven Clark. That would be I don't know. They've ramped
I don't know
him
if he plays. He's in ramp up.
Yeah,
he was in ramp up this week, so that obviously would mean he shouldn't be playing.
Right.
And Sua Peta, who needs to put some good tape out there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I tell you, I thought the second string offensive line played really well against the Steelers, starting with Brett Toth at left tackle, and even Matt Pryor played well at right tackle. He's the biggest tease, man. This guy, we saw it 2 years ago in that wild card game against Seattle when he had to play right guard. He played it fairly well. Then last year he was atrocious in camp, lost out to Nate Herbig. Then they tried him at left tackle when Dillard got hurt, and he just kept getting owned by Josh Sweat over and over and over. And then he wound up making the team, but having to play and not playing well. And you thought there's no way he's going to be on the team this year. And I still don't think he's going to be on the team this year, but I can't say he's had an awful camp. So honestly, the Eagles should look to try to trade him at the end of camp to a team that needs some OT help, because to get anything for him, I think would be a pretty good benefit at this point.
Hey, the Panthers, I was shocked they got something for Greg Little, who they were going to cut.
Right.
In fact, they got the Dolphins to take. Because if they would have cut him, they would have owed him $100,000. So the Dolphins are now responsible for that. Whereas now he was a second round pick. You'd say, well, guy's a second round pick. He's gifted, but he's never done a thing. He's been a major disappointment. This regime didn't draft him. It was the Marty Hurdy regime. But nevertheless, Pryor's a 6th round pick, but he started games. I understand he's regressed.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something in him where you're right. He's got a chance. We mentioned Kenny Gainwell. We want to see more of him.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it for us.
They should trade Pryor to the Steelers because he played decently enough against them, and they need offensive line depth. So, I mean, they might as well either trade him to them or Seattle, because
maybe Carolina could take him. They need they need a backup guard and a backup left tackle. I mean, he can play it.
Hey, man, it would not surprise me if there was a market for Matt Pryor, as hard as it is to make that team. All right, defense. Well, before we get into defense, let's stop and remind our everybody to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of Philadelphia sports teams. They are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. Great coverage, great podcasts, all the great content you can check out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. And we'll pause one moment for another word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you do go into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, please tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. They'll give you chocolates. You'll get fed grapes. I mean, you'll get along with an unbelievable car deal. Whether you're buying or trading in, you will get the ITB special treatment.
And by the way, they need cars. There's a shortage of used cars in the country, or the pre-owned cars, as they call it. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I sold 2 years ago. We sold 2 cars to Sky Motors. We got a really good deal because I went on Kelley Blue Book and I went through everything, and they were very fair. So they're definitely buying cars. And also, if you need a new car, they're not just buying or selling high-end cars. They'll sell you a Nissan. They'll sell a Lamborghini. Go on their website, skymotorcars.com. And as Geoff said, tell them we sent you there.
There you go. All right. So as we get back to focusing on the defense in this game, look, I mean, with Derek Barnett's shoulder injury, I'm guessing that he's not going to play at all. You may have seen enough of Josh Sweat. Like, you can put that dude in bubble wrap until
I was thinking about that.
An opener. I'm wondering how much of this first team defensive line is actually going to play against the Patriots.
Good question. I would say this. Here are the guys that need to play a lot. Milton Williams, who's really come on. He looks like the guy they thought they were drafting with the explosion. The shorter arms put him out of the second round. But he's been a problem for the offensive line. His first step, his ability to get it to move, he's very unique. They don't have anyone like him. He's super explosive for smaller. When I say smaller, for technically, for a guy that isn't quite as big as Fletcher Cox, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I think this D tackle rotation is starting to Cox, Hargrave, Milton Williams, T.Y. McGill. Certainly,
McGill's had a nice camp.
Yeah, it's not just 1 or 2 flash plays. He's got the scheme down. I haven't heard much about Ridgeway. So, to me, in this game, Ridgeway, McGill, Raekwon Williams, Tui Pelotu. I've still not heard. We've heard about 70 players on the show. We've talked about 70 players. We don't have anything on this, folks. I'm sorry. I don't have anything on him.
Look, Tui Pelotu did not, and I have a theory about this. Okay. The whole third-string defensive line did not play well. We all saw that. Pittsburgh ran the ball 42 times in that game, right? The Eagles ran 42 total plays. Pittsburgh ran the ball 40 times just running, okay? So that just shows you what they were able to do in the second half. But you also remember that Mullins threw 2 interceptions. So the defense was on the field, then comes the offense out, interception. Defense gets back on the field, then the offense comes out, throws an interception. Then the defense goes back on the field. It was also 105 degrees that day. So I'm not sure the third-string defensive line is as bad as it looked, or if that was just having to get right back on the field in an 105-degree night. So we'll see. But I felt like Tui Pelotu and Raekwon Williams did not represent themselves as well as you had hoped. So they will have a chance for atonement against the Patriots. And I agree with you. For a guy I know he's just a 6th-round pick, but you and I reported that. We knew that they felt that they had something better in Tui Pelotu than a 6th-round pick. But yeah, I can't say you've just seen or heard much from him throughout training camp. So it would be nice to see him pick it up a little bit. Look, the guy I'm looking at also, Adam, is Kerryon Jackson. I thought he's had a nice camp. I know the Eagles really have liked his performance. You got to think that Brandon Graham will be coming out pretty. I don't think they need to play him the entire first quarter. And we already know Derek Barnett may not play much, or if at all, with the shoulder. So a really good opportunity to see your guy, Milton Williams, at least play some D-end and then maybe move into inside, but also to get Kerryon Jackson and see if he can build off what I thought was a really nice effort against the Steelers last week.
All right, the linebacker, yeah, I agree. Linebacker, there's really not much to say. Avery, if he does play with his minor injury, they obviously needs to get more work there. Osman's got a concussion, so I don't think he'll be playing.
Right.
This is a game for Sean Bradley. He's going to have to play a lot. T.J. Edwards will probably play a lot. Patrick Johnson will probably play a lot, and that's pretty much it at linebacker.
Yeah, and then the same with the secondary. Once the starters come out, you'll see McPherson, you'll see Jaquette. You think Craig James will play now?
I would be surprised. I would be surprised. He was upgraded from week to week to day to day, but why would you take the chance?
No, I wouldn't take the chance.
Right.
So it'll basically be McPherson and Jaquette for a while. You'll probably get Graylin Arnold mixed in there.
Yeah, he's
later.
off. I think he's off the injury list. So the guy before we get out of here, here are the guys I expect to play a ton of snaps at either safety or corner. Jaquette, Elijah Riley, Graylin Arnold if they clear him to play, Lavert Hill, Josiah Scott.
Oh, that's right, Josiah Scott.
Doubt it. And Kevon Seymour. Those guys will play almost, I would think, the entire second half, if not half of the second quarter. And they're in evaluation mode. This is exactly what preseason is for. Yeah,
keep your eye on Marcus Epps. He had a good game against the Steelers, and he's a guy who's had some good camps, and he's trying to put it all together. So he'll get probably a lot of run with the the second string, and for a lot of the game here against the Patriots too. So we'll see what he does. Him and Elijah Riley are kind of the guys to watch at safety there, and that should do it. I think we pretty much covered everything you should look out for. We'll be back with our normal podcast Monday morning. You're going to be hitting the road soon to see. Are you doing another Twitch channel chat?
I'm going to try to. It depends on how much time, but I'm going to try to tonight. I might because I want to test this out, doing it during a game and see how many people show up that want to talk about it. And it'll be a lot of Eagle fans, obviously, but we'll have other fans in there. Heck, we could have Patriot fans in there. Who knows?
Yeah, we could. All right. Well, good luck with that. When are you hosting next on Sirius XM?
Oh yeah, Sunday. I have a weird schedule. I've never had this kind of schedule. It's 4 to 7:30 Eastern on NFL radio. So I'll just talk about the preseason, and it'll be fun. Yeah, because pretty much most of the second week will be done as we head into the final week. It's just so weird to see 17-game season and 3-week preseason. Weird.
Right. By the way, are you doing that? Is it difficult because you're in different time zones? You're in different hotels. You're at home sometimes.
Oh yeah, I'm in my office.
We record this at a certain time, and then you're supposed to be on air at a certain time. Do you ever mix the schedule up, or do you got to be really on your keys?
Well, here's what I do, and my wife said for years you got to use your calendar and the phone, and I said I don't need it. Like I always do. I used to dismiss stuff. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But she nailed it. I mean, absolutely should have done it. And my whole career and life is in this damn phone. I just got a new Samsung.
All right.
I'm a Droid guy, folks. I'm weird. I'm old school.
You are.
I know. I'm the only non-Apple guy. I don't think I own other than iPod over the years. It's I don't know. Pretty much not an Apple guy.
It's because of you. When we're all doing our group chats with Josh or anyone else, I can't use my laptop because anybody who's on Apple, I can just through iMessenger. But I got to pick up the phone.
I have a new HP laptop, which is beautiful. But yeah, I may have to call on you for help with Apple. I probably won't even know what I'm doing. So I'm very tech savvy. Like I was one of the first people to ever do a podcast. It wasn't called that. It was called Real Audio in the late 90s. I had to have to upload it to the internet. It'd take 10 hours. Now it takes 20 minutes for 50. How long does it take you to upload the podcast or show?
Well, now that we use StreamYard, it's a whole lot less because Zoom, for those who use Zoom, once you're done with it, it takes a lot of time to then put the files on your computer, and then you got to do the editing, and you might have to email it to somebody, and then you have to upload it. Now StreamYard makes it a lot easier. So
nice.
Shout out to StreamYard. Thanks for awesome. Well, I don't have to thank them. We pay for it. So, but either way, it's been a lot easier. All right, I'll help you out with your phone, and then in the process, I'll teach you some push-up techniques and get you going on.
I need them. Yeah.
All right,
man. Thanks.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in the Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads. His website broadsmedia.com, and his Twitter handle is @broads81. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.